Hi, I'm John Hornick. Welcome to Lesson 16 of Chef's Apprentice, Learning to Cook Like a Pro, one small plate at a time. This lesson is sweet pea and pancetta Asian pear rolls. This super easy and tasty preparation introduces pureeing, which can be done either in a food processor or a blender. Purees provide concentrated tastes and color and are a great way to integrate a vegetable into a dish without it looking like a garnish or a second thought. You will make many purees as you cook your way through this course. Techniques today are peeling and coring an Asian pear, slicing paper thin, chopping, pureeing, seasoning, and grilling. So let's start cooking. Okay, let's talk about our mise en place. I was told recently that I mispronounced it. My French is atrocious. I think it's supposed to be mise en place, but I say mise en place. First we'll talk about our ingredients. The first thing we're going to need is an Asian pear. And you could use other types of pears, Bartlett pear or any other type of pear that's in the store. But the Asian pear is nice for this because it's round throughout. It's not pear-shaped, basically. And they often come in this little foam protective cover. These are very tasty pears, by the way. Maybe not so easy to find. I got this at Whole Foods. But if you can't find an Asian pear, use any other kind of a pear. We'll also need some olive oil, and we'll need some lime juice. Now, I have prepared the lime juice in advance. You don't need to see me squeezing any more limes because we're on lesson 16. So we're going to need about 3 tablespoons of lime juice, give or take. We'll also need to have a pound of cooked frozen peas. Now, these came uncooked, so I'm going to cook these before we go on camera. So you'll need a pound of cooked frozen peas. You'll also need some cumin. We're only going to need just a pinch of that, basically. So we'll not measure it out, but we'll use it when we need it. We will also need to have some cilantro, mostly the leaves, not the stems, and about a half a bunch. We'll also need to have a red onion. And this also I'm going to prepare before we start cooking. We'll need about 1/3 of a cup, give or take, about 1/3 of a cup of chopped red onion, fairly finely chopped. And finally, well, not finally, we will also need some pancetta. Now this is Colombico brand pancetta that I got at Whole Foods, and you can see that the slices are round, which is appropriate for this preparation. And I believe this package has about 8 in it. We're going to be making 8 of these rolls with the amount of ingredients that are shown in the description. So you'll need 8 slices of pancetta. Also, we'll need kosher salt, as we always do, and a Peppermill for fresh ground pepper. So that is all of the ingredients. I'm going to break now and come back and show you the equipment that we'll need for lesson 16. Okay, before we start talking about equipment, there are a couple of things I forgot to say about the ingredients. First, with respect to the Asian pear, we're going to peel it and core it before we go on camera. So when you go to the next segment, you want to have your pear peeled and cored already. Secondly, I forgot to mention about the peas. I'm using peas in this preparation, but you could also use edamame. Edamame is soybeans, and very similar color, a bit different taste, and that would make it even more Asian. Okay, so that is all I wanted to say about the ingredients. Now, for equipment, we'll need a cutting board, we will need a chef's knife, also need a slicing knife, we will need a peeler to peel that Asian pear. The corer is optional. These are both OXO, peeler and corer. And we will also need a food processor. Now, I think I said in a prior lesson that I have 2 food processors. Got them both at yard sales for less than $5. There's a lot of food processors out there that people don't use. Look for one in a yard sale. You can pick one up cheap. We'll also need to have a mandoline. Now, a mandoline, you can buy this kind, which I think cost about $150, and it's a French tool that's used for slicing things very thin. But I hardly ever use this thing. It's kind of unwieldy, and I think that this Asian mandoline made out of plastic works just as well, if not better, and it probably cost only about somewhere between $5 and $10. So Now this is optional. You don't have to have a mandoline, but you want to. We're going to slice these Asian pears paper thin, and you want consistency. So it's paper thin all the way across your slice. So you can do it with a slicing knife, but I think you'll get better results if you have a mandoline. We'll also need to have a spoon, and we'll need to have a mixing bowl and a rubber spatula. And we'll need to have some crumpled brown paper for draining the rolls after we saute them. And we may need some toothpicks. If I do this right, we won't need any toothpicks. But if the Asian pear slices are too thick, we might. So we'll see. So that is all of our equipment. Let's break now and come back and start cooking. Okay, so here we are at the board, looking at our prep list. I have already cooked the peas, and I went ahead and put them into the food processor, which I'll show you in a moment. I peeled and I cored the Asian pear, and I chopped some red onion here, about a third of a cup. And I already had the brown paper prepped earlier, and then I prepped the pancetta. And what does that mean? It means in this case, have the package open, ready to go, but in the refrigerator. It's like prosciutto in the sense that it will start to melt at room temperature. So it's easier to work with if you keep it cold. Okay, so I've also prepped the lime juice, and let's bring the food processor onto the camera. Okay, so I've prepped the lime juice. It's about, like I said, roughly about 3 tablespoons, give or take. And we're going to use about roughly 2 tablespoons of olive oil, which you'll just eyeball. You've got enough experience with that now. And the cilantro is in there already, and just a little bit of cumin. And I'm going to use just like about a quarter of a teaspoon, roughly, which is just it's a healthy. That's like 2 pinches. Okay, don't need a lot of it. It carries a long way. All right, so we have the olive oil, the lime juice, and the cilantro and the peas and the cumin in the food processor. So now we are going to process them. We're going to puree them. Now I'm going to start this on camera. I'm going to pulse it to start mixing it. And then I'm going to go off camera and finish the pureeing, and you'll do the same thing. So let's come back when we have our pea puree all nice and smooth. Okay, so it took about 2 minutes, I'd say, to finish pureeing that, to get the pea puree nice and smooth. And take it off of the processor and remove the blade. Get the extra pea puree off the blade. And then we want to put that into a mixing bowl. That's what we use our rubber spatula for. Now, remember what I said in a prior lesson about cilantro. This preparation calls for cilantro. Some people don't like cilantro. Some people, it tastes like soap. So you could use parsley instead. And also, when you're pureeing it, if it's too granular, if it's too dry, you can always add a little bit more olive oil or even a little bit of water. Okay, so there we go, and we have it in the bowl. Now what we want to do is add our onion. Okay. All right, onions in the bowl. Now we want to do some seasoning, and again, you should be getting good at this by now. Look at how much you have and how much salt you think you need. You can always start off with a little less than you think you need. You can always add more. You can't take it away. Now do the same thing with the pepper. As I said, if you get a nice covering of pepper on the top, and then you stir it around, and you see that pepper throughout, you'll see that you had a good amount of pepper to start with. Mix that around in the bowl so the onion is well mixed in. If the onion looks like it's well mixed in, then the salt and pepper is also. Now let's taste this and see what we have. I'm going to add a little bit more salt and a little bit more pepper. Remember, this is to some extent a matter of taste, but you want to be able to just taste the salt. You don't want the salt to be overpowering. You don't want it to be absent. You want to just taste it. All right, let's taste it again. Good, okay. Now, check our prep list. We prepped the olive oil, lime juice, and cilantro. We processed the olive oil, the lime, the cilantro, the peas, and the cumin. We put it in the bowl, seasoned it, tasted it. We stirred in the onion. Now, we want to slice the Asian pear. And we're going to use the mandolin to do that. Now, I want to get slices that are as wide as I can get them, but I can already see that this pear is wider than the mandolin. So I am going to just take a little bit off of the sides so that I can see that that Asian pear will fit in the mandolin. Okay, good. Now, I'm going to cut the pear in half, and then, oh, I've got a couple of seeds in the center here, so we're going to use our spoon to get rid of those. One more. Okay, now, I'm going to use the plastic mandolin, and I want very thin slices. There's a screw on the bottom that adjusts that. As you screw it clockwise, it makes the slices thinner. Counterclockwise makes them thicker. Now I'm going to just do a couple of turns and then try a sample slice. Now that slice is about 1/8 of an inch thick. That's thicker than I want them to be. I want them to be paper thin. Good, that's paper thin. It bends, you see, and that's important. All right, so let's do this whole Asian pear. Now, we're only making 8 of the rolls, but sometimes these break, sometimes you need an extra one, so I'm going to do sometimes they're not big enough, so you need to do some overlapping. All right, so I did all, so I came up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, far more than 8, okay? And all we need is enough to make 8 rolls, okay? Now, let's stack these up over on the side. And let's get the other off the board here so we can work clean. Okay, we have sliced the Asian pears. Now we're going to make the rolls. So I have to go get the pancetta, and because it is in the refrigerator, and we want to take the first slice. Try not to break it up. You want it to stay whole. Get that whole slice off of there, okay? Lay it down on your board, flat, and then put a slice of Asian pear on top. Now I see that the slices of the pancetta are wider than the Asian pear. So what we're going to do is, as you can see, I put down 1 slice and then I put a half a slice next to it. So I pretty much covered the pancetta. Now I want to take some of the pea puree and put it in the center. And now I want to roll up the pancetta, and as you can see, it's holding together pretty well. If those slices of pear had been thicker, they may have caused the rolls to pop open. Now I'm going to use toothpicks because I think they kind of look nice, and we're going to make 1 more on camera, then I'm going to go off camera and make all the rest. So again, take another slice of the pancetta Be careful taking it off so it stays together as a roll. Put your Asian pear slice on there. I've got a half from the last one that I made. Now let's take our pea puree. Put it in the center, and then roll it up. Try to put the part that's coming out the ends, push it back in, and then let's put in a toothpick. Okay, so that's 2. I'm going to go off camera, do the other 6, and when I come back, we'll be at the stove to start sauteing them. I know I said I was going to meet you at the stove, but I thought I'd just come back and show you the finished rolls. I went ahead and made 10 because I had 10 slices of pancetta and I had enough apple slices, and I had I had plenty of the pea puree. There's some left over here. You could use it to make a ravioli. You could just use it as a spread on something else. Now I will break and I'll come back and we will saute these rolls. Okay, so we are ready to grill the Asian pear rolls. I preheated the pan to about low to medium heat. I put a little bit of oil in the pan. Now that isn't really crucial because pancetta is basically a bacon product and it has its own fat. But I thought we might give them a little bit of a head start if we put a little bit of oil in the pan. I used avocado oil, which has a high smoke point. We're just going to let them grill there for a minute or so. I think they'll start to release from the pan pretty soon. If the pea puree wants to escape from the end of it, just take a spoon and press it back in there. These look like little bacon and pea cannolis. I'm going to pull out these toothpicks because they're holding together very well, and I want to be able to get to not just the 2 basically flat sides of the rolls, but I want to try to get to the other sides as well. Not quite ready to release yet. Now if they're not ready to release, don't force them. Let them release when they're ready. If they're not releasing, that usually means that you don't have either enough oil or enough heat. Oh yeah. Looks good. Now another reason that I made 10, even though this preparation calls for 8, is that sometimes you need extras. Sometimes some fall apart in the pan. Sometimes some of them don't look too good when they're finished. Sometimes you have a really hungry friend who wants an extra one. All right, so those are looking pretty good. I'm going to let them finish, and I will meet you back at the board for plating. Okay, so here we are. We have, I only grilled 5 of them. I'll do the other 5 later. They look nice. They're in these little plates because they're being served. You know, these are more of an amuse-bouche than a small plate. Just to recap, we peeled and we cored and we sliced paper thin an Asian pear. We chopped some red onion, and we also pureed or processed the pea puree that went into the rolls. We assembled the rolls, we seasoned them, we grilled them. You can see final photos of this preparation on my Instagram, which is @Chef's Apprentice Cook Like a Pro. And next up is an exciting dish. It's actually the last of the easy preparations. Then we'll get into the medium difficulty preparations. But this next preparation, it might sound wild and crazy and difficult, but it's actually quite easy. It's beef shabu shabu, which is a Japanese dish, with a wasabi mayonnaise and a wild mushroom nabimono, which is basically a Japanese word for a type of broth. So I'm excited about doing that one next week. And so please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for listening. Enjoy this dish.